Hey friends, it's Just the Gems. I'm Brandon. I'm assuming we've all seen the Nintendo Direct, right? But as is typical for these things, Japan's Nintendo Direct was a bit different. And one of those key differences was the fact that they got to look at this brand new trailer for Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D Remake. Still one of the biggest mouthfuls of a titles I've ever seen. But holy cow, this game, or these games, I guess, they're looking so freaking good. And not only do they look incredible, they also have a bunch of new features that honestly have me really intrigued. In Dragon Quest 1, there are some new scenarios, which I think will be cool just based on the fact that the original was pretty straightforward, right? In Dragon Quest 2, they've given us an entirely new party member. If you've played the original Dragon Quest 2, you'll recall that you only had 3 members in your group: the Prince of Maidenhall, the Princess of Moonbrook, and the Prince of Cannock. In the HD 2D version, the Princess of Cannock joins the party as well. I was already excited to see how they handled the story in this one, since the original on the NES was among the very first JRPGs to feature distinct party members with built-in personalities. But with an entirely new character in the mix, I'm even more ready for this. And we only have a couple of more months to wait. They're hitting stores on October 30th. Just in general, it's so great that these games are getting the full remake treatment. If you've heard me talk about my history with JRPGs before, you might know that Dragon Quest One, or Dragon Warrior, as us OGs called it, that was my first JRPG ever. It was one of the most formative video game experiences of my life. I probably wouldn't be here making videos on YouTube if not for Dragon Quest One. Now, I know some people get worried when the games that are super meaningful to them are getting remade. I can understand that feeling to an extent, but for the most part, I don't really feel that sort of dread or fear or whatever you want to call it. For one thing, Dragon Quest 1 has been remade before. It came out on the Super Famicom, but of course we didn't get that one. We did get the Game Boy Color remake, which was basically a down-resed version of the Super Famicom games. It's good. Honestly, it's the way I was able to first actually beat the game. I mean, part of that is because they increased the amount of gold and experience you get from enemies. Okay, yeah, that was a really big part of it. But looking at that upgrade, it's not that much better than the NES version, especially graphically, right? Sure, there's kind of, sort of battle animations, and the music is a bit more varied, but it's not super far removed from the original. This HD 2D remake is miles beyond any of the remakes this game has seen. Of course, it's not shocking, right? I mean, we saw the exact same glow up with Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D last year, but I never got to play Dragon Quest 3 as a kid. I didn't even get to play Dragon Quest 2. I remember reading Nintendo Power and being extremely jealous of the people who did get to play it, but it just wasn't going to happen for me. Not sure why, to be honest. It just never found its way under the Christmas tree. I didn't have any money. I was a kid. But I think that's the reason that this HD 2D rendition of the first game is making me so excited. This is the game. It's technically the weakest entry. You only have one party member and the quest is really basic and there's just not a lot of depth to it, but man, it just means so much to me. Getting to see it done up with the same level of care as the others feels really meaningful too. There's a lot of respect for the legacy of this series that Square Enix is showing with these games. And I mean, sure, it's one of Square Enix's flagship series, so of course they're showing respect for its legacy. But I'm old enough to remember when Dragon Quest just really wasn't a thing over in the West. The first 4 games dropped on the NES, sure, but then we went an entire console generation without an entry, including Dragon Quest V, which many people would reasonably argue is one of the best JRPGs ever made. When Dragon Quest VII came out on PlayStation, while we technically got it, as Dragon Warrior 7, we weren't quite ready to accept the quest. It just didn't make a huge splash, certainly not on the level of something like Final Fantasy VII. And yeah, the series did start to grow in popularity over here with 8, and I'm sure 9 had its fans. I haven't played it, but I've heard good things in general. But it really wasn't until Dragon Quest XI that the West started to really feel the Dragon Quest love. And now there's just absolutely no shortage of love for the series, and I'm really happy about that. I think Dragon Quest 1 will benefit from the remake in other ways too. If you played the original, you know that the things you need to do are extremely inscrutable in that game. Like, mission critical items you need to find are just like on a random tile on the map. I'm curious if it was much easier in the Japanese, like maybe if there were some things lost in translation or whatever, but I have a feeling it was pretty hard over there too. This game originally came out back when there just weren't that many games, And so the more indecipherable a game was, the longer you got to enjoy it. I know I appreciated that as a kid, but as a working adult, that's just not something I'm eager to dive into anymore. I'm positive that as part of the modernization process, they'll have made those difficult tasks much, much easier to get done. Like, if you have to search some random spot on the map for an absolutely vital item, I'm sure they'll make that doable. But more likely, they'll have come up with a better and more fun way for you to get that item in the first place. I have to also imagine they've done a lot of rebalancing. They've already proven they're not against doing that with the previous remakes of these games, so my hope is that this version of the game is just by far the most convenient to play. Not sure if there'll be difficulty options, but I'm guessing something similar to Dragon Quest III HD 2D will be in there. If you saw my review of that game, you might recall I wasn't the most crazy about the easy setting, which basically just makes it impossible for you to die. I'd love it if there was a bit more nuance to it. Like, sure, you can have that as one of the possible settings, but I'd also like the ability to either crank down the difficulty just a bit, or maybe bump up the experience if I'm settling in for a grinding session. But we'll see. Even without the level of robustness and difficulty settings that I'd have preferred, DQ3 still played extremely well. Okay, so yeah, I'm really hyped for the DQ1 remake. But DQ2 is, I think, objectively speaking, a much, much better game. I played that one for the first and only time on the Game Boy Color, and I was pretty impressed with how much of an advancement it was over the original. Having an actual cast of characters is huge, and having those characters have their own strengths and weaknesses in battle was laying the groundwork for how most JRPG parties would be handled for the rest of time. The quest was much bigger too. I won't spoil it in case you haven't played these games, but there's a really cool revelation as you make your way through the world in Dragon Quest II. Actually, there's a few, and at least one of them made me laugh out loud, legitimately, and that was back on the Game Boy. The writers at Square Enix are light years better at making me laugh these days, so I fully expect to be cracking up at certain points, let's say. Anyway, I already knew I was pretty excited for these games, but seeing this new trailer and getting this new information has just made me nearly rabid. And once these games come out and sell 1 billion copies, I hope we get a remake of Dragon Quest IV sooner rather than later. And then, you know. All right, that's all for now. Just a short one to drop in and share the hype. Let me know what you think in the comments. Are you picking this one up? If not, what do I need to say to convince you? I hope you'll consider liking the video and subscribe if you want to stick around. I think we have fun here. Oh, and if you like podcasts, and especially podcasts about JRPGs, check out my JRPG podcast, the JRPG Pursuit. How many more times do I need to say JRPG? Anyway, we put up a new episode every week, so check us out. With that, until next time, bye.